A Sapphire Running Zone podcast.
Hi everyone, this is Tim from the Sapphire Running Zone. Welcome to another of our podcasts with fundraising managers who love to run. And on this unbelievably hot day where it's currently 30 degrees where I am, we're heading up to northern Scotland where it isn't 30 degrees. So welcome, Andrea. Tell us where you are and what the temperature is.
Oh, thanks very much, Tim. So don't be confused by the accent, which is obviously from Northern Ireland originally. But I live in the northeast of Scotland, where it's currently a balmy 14 degrees and cloudy. So I'm a bit jealous of all the sunny heat. However, I wouldn't want to be out running in that. And we were very lucky to be part of the Edinburgh Marathon Festival at the weekend, running the half marathon, and it was warm enough. It was sunny and about 22 then, which was just hot enough. And I felt for the marathon runners who'd obviously twice the distance. But today it's a bit cloudy and overcast.
Well, great to have you with us. Give us a little bit of your background. We'll talk about where you work first of all, and then tell us your running journey.
So I work for the Stroke Association, a big UK national charity, and I have been with the organisation for 8 years now in the regional fundraising team. I currently am part of stewardship, so I am very lucky and I get to speak to people who are doing incredible things to raise money right across the United Kingdom and further afield. And that includes London Marathon, Chicago, Tokyo, so the big marathon events. We have a huge representation at the Great North Run. I also look after people who are doing bake sales. We're currently in May. This is Make May Purple month for the Stroke Awareness Month. So there's people doing all sorts of wonderful things from cricket events, golf, football, all sorts of events. So I look after people by wishing them good luck, keeping them their fundraising journey, giving them tips on Just Giving pages, thanking them for their fabulous support. I am a very keen runner. I first ran London Marathon back in 1997. I filled in an application form in a magazine and posted it in a post box and was very lucky to take part in the marathon there. So I was 25 then, and that was my first marathon experience, and it was amazing. And I remember, to try and judge the distance for my training, my friend and I went out in our car and we drove round to try and make up 18 or 20 miles in York, where I lived, to try and get the distance for the training plan. I can't remember anything to do with nutrition whatsoever. So that was back then. I had a massive big break from running. Life was just busy. I had 2 children, and then got back into it again about 14 years ago, just when I turned 40, and have run another 11 marathons since then, and that includes New York last year, London again very recently, 4 weeks ago, and I've done also Dublin, Belfast, Edinburgh, and Newport, because I wanted one of each of the UK countries, and then New York was an international one. People often say, what was your favourite one? What was your favourite moment? And every one of them has something so special that you kind of want to merge them all together. They're just incredible experiences to be part of.
And you were telling me before we started recording that you've done a fair amount of running since London. Just talk us through what the last few weeks has been like.
Yeah, I really need to look at my diary before I agree to things. So I came back from London and I'm in a running club in not far from where I live. So there was a group of us went and did a 10-mile race just the weekend after London. Was no PBs were on the cards for that, but that was fine. That was nice to be part of that. And then the weekend after, I signed up very last minute to a half marathon again locally, and then I just did the Edinburgh half marathon at the weekend. So but I think I've now accepted the fact that I'm not going to get anything. I'm no Sebastian Saway. I'm not going to get anything spectacular. So I'm now just out to enjoy taking parts in events. So Sunday was my 43rd half marathon. So I'm building up to 50, hopefully by the end of this year. And that's quite like a half marathon distance as well. I just love being part of these big events that are, real community and real fundraising, and you see all the charity vests and the why people are doing this.
Tell us the difference between New York and London.
So New York, and again, I'm really glad I had done my research in advance because there's a big logistical challenge to get to the start line in New York, not just the place itself. So my daughter, who was 19, got a ballot place. Now, she only entered because I sort of said that I was looking to do it and entered, and she got in. Oh my goodness me. And I was just like, okay, I really want to do this as well. So I went through Sports International tours and I bought my place. My husband nearly had a heart attack because I was the two of us then. And so him and my other daughter had to come to New York too. We had about 8 months of 9 months of sort of planning up to it. So the logistics of New York are massive because there's no bag drop. So basically you have to wear to the start line at 6 o'clock in the morning everything that you're then going to discard. So blankets, charity, you buy everything from a charity shop. I was dressed like an 80s teenager as we headed to the start line. Started in November, quite cool in the morning, but my goodness, it was so exciting. Walking through Times Square, and it's just dark, and you just see a few other runners sort of in, again, this sort of charity people in dressing gowns, hoodies. And arranged to meet a group on Facebook, and then we walked and got the subway down to the Staten Island, get onto the Staten Island ferry again. Oh my goodness me, what an incredible experience that is. Just the ferry full of runners, all anticipating the day ahead. The sun was shining, and it was just speaking to people just all over the world. Then you get bussed about 9 miles to the start line, and then it becomes a bit of a festival. You sit, there's coffee, there's bagels, and there's helicopters flying overhead, and the atmosphere is incredible. I will spare you the difference between the Portaloos in the United Kingdom and the Portaloos in America. We'll just leave that to the imagination. But it certainly made the queues go quicker, so we'll give it that. And before we knew it, our start time was 11:30. So we'd been there an awfully long time waiting, but it just passed so quickly. And then before you knew it, there's a lady singing the national anthem and a big cannon sound. And then we were off and we ran through every district of New York, and it was just absolutely incredible. So my daughter and I ran beside each other, which is something we've not done before or since. We stuck together in our Scotland vests and just, go Scotland. And the crowds are amazing. The signs are incredible. They're so funny to read. Even Leo doesn't go over 25 was one of my favorites that stuck in my head. A reference to our friend Leo DiCaprio, but just funny things like that keep you going. And people handing out salt sticks and sweeties and cheering you on. Our names were on our vests. So I didn't realize Andrea had so many different pronunciations until it got to New York. So it was incredible finishing in Central Park, and my husband and daughter were luckily at the finish line, and it was just fantastic. We went out in Times Square that night with our medals. They really love Medal Monday in America as well. You might remember this as well, Tim. So on the Monday, we were just basically walking around, and everyone, "You go, girl! Well done! Oh, well done, Andrea!" They were celebratory. And I think in the United Kingdom, we sort of shy away from that sort of showy offness. And even when we got on the aeroplane, the pilot announced, well done to all the marathon runners," and everyone got a round of applause. Um, yes, that was an experience. It was just incredible to have that opportunity, aged 53 when I did New York, and it was just fantastic. And there's other opportunities. Obviously, Chicago is another big major in America.
I was going to ask you about that. What your plans are for the other majors?
Well, I'm not. I didn't realize I would get sort of wanting it so much, but I might try. I'm obviously in the ballot for the Berlin and Chicago and Sydney. Who knows? I'm certainly not. Um, you often speak to people, and I'm sure you have as well. Tim is going, "No, that never again, never again." And I don't think I've said that yet. I think there's more marathons to be run. It's a great experience, especially the build up to it as well. Come back to New York and London the days beforehand, just going to the expo, being part of just this incredible community of runners who've flown in from all over the world to take part in this incredible event, and all that training. And this is a piece of advice I pass on to anybody I'm speaking to who's fundraising on behalf of the Stroke Association: is every mile in the dark, every 5:30 alarm, every run that is wind, you're so wet when you come back, you're crying actual tears. It's all worth it. And everyone then comes back and goes, yeah, you were right. The day itself is so incredible that all that 4 months of training, the sacrifices, the declining social events because you've got your big long Sunday run, it's all totally worth it.
Yeah, brilliant things take a lot of hard work, don't they? And I don't think people realize how amazing it is doing a race like New York or London or any, and not just the majors, any big city centre marathon particularly, and not always necessarily in the cities. You know, there's some incredible events out there, and the feeling that you get at the end is because of all the hard work that you've put in up to that point. I know that you know we've talked a little bit about London. I'd be very, very interested to hear your thoughts on sort of London 97 versus London 2026. I first did London in 99 and obviously have seen a lot of changes over the years. You know, when I first did it, it was not a social phenomenon like it is now. What are your recollections versus where it's at now?
Well, I do remember, I remember going to expo, but I can't remember quite where that was. And I was with some friends and we went and we collected my number and lots of photographs, obviously on cameras back then. It wasn't with no social media. There was no community. You didn't know anybody at all. You knew nobody else who was doing it. But it was on the television. It was a big thing, sort of still in the 90s. Back then, my sponsor form, I ran for the British Heart Foundation. I had an actual sponsor form and collected actual money from my workplace. I worked for Nestle, Rowntree in York, so quite a big organisation. Everyone was very kind, and I collected all the money in and must have posted it in an envelope off in cash. Gosh almighty, cash! It seems to have changed. So the day I ran on the 13th of April, 1997, I've since looked into this. A young chap who won the junior event, which took place, the mini marathon, which they still do on the Saturday, was a young chap called Mohammed Farah. And I wonder whatever happened to him. So he won the junior event in 1997. So I feel like he's had quite a good running career on the back of that fantastic initiative that this still goes on, the mini mile in London on the Saturday, which is brilliant. So I know this isn't much use for a podcast, but just reflect on my medal, which is just a bit bigger than a 10 pence piece. And it was sponsored by Flora back then. And I've treasured this medal my whole life. I've treasured it and it's hung up on the wall because of what it represents. And you know, when you sort of think now, the medal, so my equivalent from 4 weeks ago is a hefty, big, you know, it's a real chunky medal. So, and it's just beautiful. But my friends and family, I don't know how they found me on the course because there's no app, there was no tracker. I had a digital Casio watch. There was no way of, you'd no chips on your bibs, you'd no chips on your trainers, nothing. I must have started my watch as the gun went off in the distance, and then it was a good 10 minutes, which in fairness, 10 minutes now is pretty good, to get across the start line at Greenwich. And then there was no official time, but I did find recently a piece of newspaper that my late parents must have kept all these years, and it had our names in the paper.
There was a special supplement, I think, in the Times
In the
newspaper.
Times.
Yeah, and that used to come out like a week later or something with all the results in it. What about the charity element? I remember there obviously being charity cheer points, but I don't remember it being to the scale that it is now. I mean, you go over Tower Bridge now, and there's virtually no room for anyone else, is there? It's wall to wall charities.
Yes, British Heart Foundation, they must have been the official charity of that year in 1997, so that's who I chose to run for. But no, I don't remember much about charity vests as such. I do remember costumes though. There was a rhino, definitely the rhinos were back, they were there back then, and a full set of noddies, like Enid Blyton noddies. So when my friends saw the noddies, they knew that I wasn't far away. So they saw me on three occasions. So it was actually easier when I think back now to get across London because my husband has tried it recently and it's really tough. The tube is rammed with people with signs and now. So, but also back then we ran along the cobblestones beside Tower of London.
That felt tough, that little stretch on the cobbles, didn't it?
Very much so. And I think by the time I was going across at sort of just under the 5 hour march, I think they were rolling the carpet up at that point. You were tough luck. You were too slow. But yes, the finish line feeling was amazing, and meeting my friends and going to McDonald's afterwards and ringing my parents over in Northern Ireland. They were obviously worried that, have you finished? Are you okay? Yes, yes, I finished. It was incredible. I'm not too sure why I didn't go back then. I had a bit of a break from running then, after that, and got back into it in the last sort of 15 years or so. But yes, it's very, very much different. Social media, my goodness me, that's a huge difference in the way it is. Because we all, if it's not on Strava, if it's not recorded, it didn't happen. So it was, when I think back, reflect back now, it was quite an innocent, kind of nice way of running back then. You weren't competing against anybody. I honestly didn't even realize that time was a thing until I went into work. What time did you do it? And I think, is that a thing? I didn't realize that was a question. So when people were asking recently, so how'd you get on London Marathon? Were you happy with your time? I'm going, delighted. I had a brilliant time. Thank you for asking. And then I move on because it doesn't. It means nothing. It means obviously a lot to everybody, but to experience London and just to enjoy it is priceless, really. The time almost doesn't matter.
Absolutely agree. So let's switch over to the fundraising side. So from a work capacity, obviously you've had heaps of experience with London Marathon runners, but also in a personal capacity. What would be your fundraising tips if we were going to have an Andrea fundraising masterclass? What would your top 5 tips be?
Well, top one is do not be shy because you are going to do the London Marathon. So we'll use London, use it very specifically as an example. So do not be embarrassed, do not be shy, don't get to March with nothing on your fundraising page. Oh, I haven't really got around to asking people yet. No, no, no. You have, and most charities, 2,500, 3,000 is their sort of, if you've got a charity place, we'll talk about charity places, they are a minimum. That's a lot. You have a lot to do to try and raise that amount. So do not be shy. Do not be embarrassed. You are going to be part of the biggest fundraising day in the world, and you're training for 4 or 5 months of your life. So be confident in asking people. So be confident. Come up with different ideas. 2 things that worked really well is I got my local village involved. So I put my little collection cans in my local paper shop, and bless them, they really got behind me, and they were getting people to donate their change, and that all added up. My goodness me. They also, so quite creative, and I'm not too sure this is for everyone. They created a mannequin in the window of the paper shop with an Andrea vest. So they borrowed a vest of mine. This lady really got behind me, and I created a little QR code. So all the fundraising pages that we use, you can get a QR code created. So use your QR code. It was on little postcards in the shop, and Andrea, scary mannequin Andrea, was there in the darkness and in the light. She was there for 7 weeks. Always sharing your page. So any communication, always have your page in, no matter what you're doing. So that's second piece of advice. Third one was I used the course map and broke it down into 26.2 chunks, and you could sponsor me. So Tim, say your birthday. When's your birthday?
In 2nd December.
2nd of December. So you might want to sponsor mile 2. So I'll give you mile 2. I'll add your name. And so you just sponsor me on Just Giving. And then I would say, thanks so much for your sponsorship. What mile do you want? You tell me 2. So I started with one spreadsheet of 26 miles. In the end, I had about 6, because it didn't matter that there was 3 people with this sponsoring mile 13. I added all the names onto ribbons, which I wore on my wrist. So I was able to do this right up until the night before. And by breaking down the route, I then reply, and oh, thank you, you'll get me at Canary Wharf. And I would use the language of London Marathon route to encourage people. Thank you so much. You're going to get me across Tower Bridge when I'm in the doldrums at mile 22 and really feeling low, at long embankment at 24. So I was using the language of the course to thank people for their sponsorship. And oh my goodness me, that just seemed to really, really snowball. And I got so much sponsorship on the back of that. Another good thing, which was I would do a wee video at the end of a 20-mile training run. And I would say in the 2 hours, so say, no, maybe not 20 miles, but sorry, 2 hours, in that 2 hours that I've just been out running in the snow and in the rain, 24 people have had a stroke. There's one every 5 minutes. So by sponsoring me, you're going to help me, and use the language of the charity. So you'll get that information from each of your charities. We were very much back on this. Every 5 minutes, somebody has a stroke in the UK. It's a daunting amount of money to raise individually, but use your network, use your black book, use your people, use your friends, use your family, use your community. And then when I put on my local Facebook group just recently, the Cutty Sark, which was created in the village I'm from, is on the back of the medal. I had 400 likes. Now, I wasn't hugely fundraising this time round because I had my own place. And plus my daughter was £2,500 for a well child. So we were concentrating on her fundraising. And again, she used her community. She used her dance group in Glasgow. She used her university. She used all her contacts. Don't ever think that your circle is small. Your circle and your husband, use every single person, and just never, ever be ever shy of asking.
Brilliant.
I don't think that was 5.
No,
Tim,
that
but
was
I'm sure
more.
there was
I
5
reckon
in
that
there
was
somewhere.
more than 5. That was superb. That's really helpful, and it's there's some great advice there, some great tips for people.
Really thank your supporters for sponsoring you individually, but we as a charity, we will be thanking. We have thanked. We will continue to thank our fundraisers, because these are people who, on a high of London, are asking us, what can we do next? What can we do next? What can we do Berlin? Can we do Chicago? Can we do Great North Run? What can we do? Thank you so much for giving us an incredible experience of being part of the team, and very much, have all the charities have their vests. Putting that vest on and being part of a team. I felt like I was at the Olympics, even though I was just on my own. I was on my own. But anytime I saw somebody in a stroke vest, thumbs up or we tap on the shoulder, and you're just this silent community of people all running for the same cause.
What's imminent for you, and what's your sort of long-term plan with your running?
Lots of half marathons, which is a distance I particularly like. It's got about 4 of them lined up over the summer period, including the Aberdeen half marathon, which is back and very exciting. My running club is got its own 10K in June, so a couple of weeks. I'm in the organising group for that. So lots of 10Ks, lots of half marathons. I've got Loch Rannoch Marathon, which is a real rural countryside Scotland marathon in October. So that's a bit of training over the summer, which is a very different time. And into next year, looking at maybe Manchester or something else, and Paris, Rome, whoever. I'm 55 next year, and I'm very grateful that I can still do this at my age. Although I tend not to dwell on that, but just let's embrace. You look round, there's people of every ability, every age, every representation of the world, all running from that part of the start line to the finish. And I think it represents life, and it's just huge. And I just try and run with a huge smile on my face, because it makes the time go quicker. And if you smile, the supporters are cheering you on back at you. So the answer is just keep doing more, and hopefully get a few more marathons and half marathons, get to 50 half marathons, and then who knows.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me. It's very inspirational.
As are you. Thank you for your time and for your inspiration, and for keeping encouraging other people. I think we're a shared community of runners, and we've all got our stories to tell. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to this Sapphire Running Zone podcast. Keep checking back, as we have lots more podcasts coming soon.